First of all, welcome to the Art and History Museums of Maitland. My name is Randall, and I'll be one of your hosts for the evening. We're going to have a short talk here, and then we're going to go across the street to the gallery and then walk through the gallery with Victor. So first, I would like to introduce our guest for the evening, the artist who we're currently featuring in our exhibition, Victor Bokas. Victor earned a degree in graphic design from the University of Florida. His career includes 9 years as senior art director at SeaWorld and 20 years as senior art director at Tupperware, which is based, their national headquarters, world headquarters, are based right here in Orlando, if you don't know that. Victor grew up on the Gulf Coast of Florida against a backdrop of palm trees and tropical breezes. So it's no wonder that he frequently includes these and other popular images of Florida kitsch in his paintings and collage work. His art is represented in many galleries and corporate public collections, including the Maitland Art Center, the Manalo Museum of American Art, Orlando City Hall, the Orange County Convention Center, Tupperware Brands, Walt Disney World Productions, and at the Orlando International Airport, where there is a 15 by 85 foot mosaic masterpiece that can be found on the floor of Terminal A. And Victor has brought us some images of that actual piece. And Victor, that's in the Southwest Terminal?
That's the Southwest
So I'll be
Terminal.
seeing that this weekend in person.
Great.
I'll send you a picture.
Please do.
And also, he has another piece that is debuting with the new terminal, Terminal C. There's the big transportation building that's at the entrance of Terminal C, and they have a Welcome to Orlando sign, and next to the Welcome to Orlando sign is Victor's there are 12 panels that are 4 feet by 4 feet each.
On plexiglass.
On plexiglass, you can see them there. So it's huge. Well, you can see the scale. Is that you standing by
That's
there?
me,
I can
yeah.
see that. Yeah. So that shows you just how large that is. And that is your welcome to Orlando. So congratulations, Victor.
Well,
That's
thank you.
quite an amazing thing. Please help me welcome Victor Bokas.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you, Randall. And it's such an honor to be exhibiting here at the Maitland Art Center. This is actually my third exhibit here. So to have 3 exhibits. My first one was back in '95, where I had 100 paintings that all joined together to make one continuous piece, and we wrapped the whole gallery. And then back in 2008, I had a show here called Roots and Branches, talking about just the symbolism of the family and family trees, and it was a theme of different trees and just kind of the importance of family, and that was an exhibit. And now, most recently, this is a exhibit, A Bold and Colorful Journey.
That's
is that
right.
so?
That's
and
right.
this is exciting to showcase my journey during the pandemic. And these are all pieces that were done during the pandemic, starting in March of 2020, and I'll elaborate more on that. But I'm excited to be here, and just thank you for you guys coming out tonight. And I brought a variety of different things. And Randall, go ahead. What do we need to?
Well, since you mentioned your previous exhibitions and the 100 drawings,
Right.
So I'm going to jump to that question, which is, so in this exhibition, there is a series of 60 collages to celebrate your 60th birthday.
Right.
You also did 50 for your 50th birthday.
Right.
And for the turn of the millennium, you did one each day.
I did a drawing every day to document the year 2000.
So Victor, how do you make a decision to undertake something of that magnitude, knowing that, okay, every day for the next year, I'm going to get up and I'm going to do a drawing?
Well, it's discipline, and I love journaling. I think is really important, and I keep thinking, why do I do these series? And looking back, I've always collected. I look back, and and Randall, you've been over to my house, and I have collections of snow globes, those tacky snow globes you pick up at Stuckey's, and I have over probably 500 of those. I collect Elvis memorabilia. I share a birthday with Elvis, so I collect anything that's Elvis related. 50 memorabilia, 50s furniture, pottery. So I've always collected. So to me, doing a series I think is part of a, it's like, well, I've always had these big collections, and now to be able to do a series of work, and it just kind of seems like a natural flow for me. But I think too, it's to set a goal to do 100 paintings and to say, okay, I'm going to do it, and actually pull it off. I mean, sometimes setting that, goal and saying, can I actually do it? And then you put it down and you start telling your friends, well, then you're dedicated, you have to pull it off. And so the first series were the 100 paintings, and that just kind of accidentally happened. I worked on it was a watercolor sheet of paper that I was doing an oil painting, and it was an abstract painting, and I liked the shapes and colors. I added another piece of paper next to it, continued the shapes and forms, added another sheet of paper, and after the 3 paintings, I kind of sat back and said, this is interesting. I kind of like this flow of images. I never started out doing 100. It wasn't like, oh, I'm going to do 100 paintings. It just evolved. It was one of those situations.
Why stop at 3?
Well, and then and it was the first of the year, and I remember going, wow, I wonder if I can pull off 100 paintings. What if I do 100 pieces within the year? And the concept was, once I completed this painting, I would put the sheet of paper next to it, continue the shapes. But once I started painting on the new piece, the previous one went away. So it wasn't like I could go back and make mark making on the previous piece. And I actually even put that piece away, so I couldn't even look at it. It was like, it's done, it's under my bed, and I'm gonna wait till all 100 pieces are completed and then bring them out and see what they look like. Because it's that surprise. It's kind of, and that's how that series began. And I had such success, and that was so much fun working on that when the year 2000 was approaching, as a kid, you hear, oh my gosh, it just seemed like so futuristic. We were going to be living a completely different lifestyle. And
all of our computers were
going to crash, and we were all going to be, like the Jetsons, and I was just like, what if I did a drawing every day? What if I disciplined myself and not pick up a paintbrush? So I eliminated color from my world, and I strictly focused on the beauty of pen and ink. So that was the journey for that series, was to focus on line drawing. Just really look at the delicate beauty of the line and not pick up a paintbrush, and just every day, we're disciplined every day. We get up, we brush our teeth, we shower, we go to work, whatever we do. I'm like, I can do a piece of art. And they're all the size of a CD jewel case. So I took that, outlined it, and every day, whether or not it was before I went to work or before I went to bed, I did a little drawing. And these are very spontaneous. They're not realistic by any means, but it was more about just focusing on different shapes and textures and how many different variations of line work you can do. You can do stippling, you can do crosshatch, you can do, oh my God, the line can vary in so many beautiful ways. And the interesting thing about that series was, one, if you do a project and if you journal every day, the year goes by, I found for myself, real slow, because you're capturing every day and you're really paying attention to that day. And I'd be driving to work and I would see a beautiful like shadow crossing the street. And so in my mind, I'd take a snapshot. I go, okay, that's it. I'm going to remember that shape, and that's going to be my inspiration for the drawing. And it could be as simple as like, I'm looking at these two chairs right now in the shadow. Like it would be like, okay, I like that. That's an interesting composition. Remember that, Victor. Yeah. And then that evening I would focus on that. And so again, it just kind of evolved. I mean, that series was planned,
right.
But
it's interesting that a lot of your series seem to start at the beginning of the year. Because even the
Well, they
series that
all
are
do.
in
I've
this,
never
they
thought about
always
that.
start at the beginning of the year.
That is true.
Do you
Well, it's
set
in
a
the
lot
beginning.
of?
I guess that is true. I mean, it's kind of a new, we start the year off, it's a new beginning, it's a fresh way to look at life and a fresh way to approach it. I've never thought about that.
I guess
but,
your New Year's resolutions are
yeah, and so
to start a new
it's
project.
usually to start a project, and so, or a series.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. I've never given that much thought, but they always have started. And I think too, that gives you that cycle. You start at the beginning of the year, have that, that circle, that completion. And the other series that you mentioned, when I turned 50, I decided to do 50 paintings to celebrate turning 50. And those were all watercolor, mixed media collages. And that series started out where they were kind of themed in decades. So the first 10 were very loose, very just real simple mark making, real simple shapes, circles, squares, and then it evolved and got more complex as like in my 20s when I went to college. So I started incorporating images of pieces from art history into some of the collage works that I did. And the last, from 40 to 50, were all self-portraits. And so so that series was more thought out and themed, where each decade had a different kind of subject or kind of went along with my age.
So tonight we'll learn more about the 60s when we get over to the gallery, and we'll learn a little more about
because that's a completely different approach that I did.
That's great. So let's go back to kind of some earlier, kind of basic questions. When did you first realize that you had an interest in art?
So when I was 11 years old, I went to my first outdoor art festival. And growing up outside of Pensacola in Gulf Breeze, Florida, very small town, not really exposed to a lot of art. And I went to the festival. It was an outdoor show. Like I said, it was the first outdoor festival art show I'd been to. I rode my bike to the art show, spent all day, and I just fell in love. I mean, it was like, what? You created that? I remember just walking out and talking to the artist and going, you actually painted that. You drew that. You made that beautiful vase. I was just, at age 11, just really taken that someone could create such beautiful forms and subject matters. And I purchased, but what was interesting, the festival, or the art show, was raffling off a painting, and it was a painting by 12 local artists. And the raffle tickets, this was back in the 70s, early 70s, they were $1 for the raffle ticket. And I bought a raffle ticket, and I waited till the end of that show, because I just prayed they were going to call my name, and they did. And whether that's destiny, what you call it, but that set the path for my career. I mean, that moment, I knew I wanted to be an artist. I mean, I was so excited. That was my lotto ticket. I came home that night and told my parents I won this painting, which they still have in the house. It's a beautiful painting. And I just was like, please, I really want to start taking art lessons. And my mom looked into, lessons, and at age 11, I started painting and took private lessons all the way through middle school, all the way through high school, and that was just truly my passion. I wasn't interested in sports, and this was my outlet that I was just like, wow, this is something I enjoy, and just really
Of course, your mother tells the story of when you were much younger.
Oh,
and
true.
She already knew you were going to be an artist.
I can't believe she shared that. And it was an honor or just thrilled that my mom, who's about to be 90 years old, came to my opening. So it was a thrill for her to be here and for me to have my mom. And she's always been so supportive. I mean, we have done so many art shows. I mean, back in the day, I would travel and do the outdoor festivals, and my mom was there with me, helping me set up, tear down. These outdoor shows are brutal. I mean, it's not easy to do. And, but she told you the story, I'm sure, at age 3. She was going to take me shopping, probably for a new pair of shoes. And I was already dressed. She gave me a sheet of, just a piece of notebook paper and a red crayon, and just, she went in her room to get dressed, and I just doodled on the piece of paper and
on the living room floor.
but then after I doodled on the little piece of paper, I continued. I wanted to do something really special because I was quite excited to go get a new pair of shoes. And I drew a rainbow, a red rainbow in my bedroom. So it was in my bedroom across the floor. And so this kind of off-green carpet, and with the red, and I went from one end of the room to the other, and I just did this rainbow, repetitive shape. And I was so proud of this. And I remember going and knocking on her door and like, Mom, come, gotta see this. And she walks in and she just was like, okay. I mean, she just did not freak out. She kept her calm. We did not go shopping. Instead, she called us cleaning, company, carpet cleaner, to come and try to remove part of the red marks that were on the carpet. But I lived with that carpet all the way through college. And finally, it wasn't until I moved away that they replaced that carpet. And friends would come over and go, what's with that? And I actually, now I wish I had it because I turned it into a piece of art. But, even back then, she wasn't upset. I mean, it was a situation where, okay, he was
It was
proud.
amazing the way she told the story,
And
that she was like, oh yeah, we knew he was creative right then. He
back
did that.
then-
And it wasn't a story of
anger, no.
Right.
I mean, it wasn't like,
It was
oh my
like,
God,
okay.
bad, lock yourself up in the room and no red crayons for you. But, no, so, and I'm very blessed that both of my parents were very supportive in my career. I mean, it's, my dad's a pharmacist, and he just assumed that either my sister or myself would take over the business. And when you're like, no, I want to become a graphic designer, that was really hard for him to process. It was one of those like, what's a graphic designer? And it wasn't until I went into the pharmacy and I pointed out everything in the store and said, a designer did this, a designer designed the package, all your signage, all of that, and then it clicked. And so it's, so my career has always been in graphic design. I've done the fine arts on the side. So I've kind of balanced two careers.
So how has growing up in Florida influenced your style?
Well, I would say, Pensacola Beach, I don't know how many of y'all have been to the Panhandle. It is truly paradise. I mean, it's that sugar, white sand, palm trees, tourists, beautiful sunsets. You don't realize it's paradise till you leave. And growing up on the beach, fishing, all of that is inspiration. That is those bright colors. I mean, my work is very colorful. I mean, at this exhibit, it's all about the palm trees.
Right.
I always talk about the palm trees are kind of my happy place, or the beach and seeing the palm trees, the movement of the trees, the different shadows they cast. There's so much form that you can take from the palm trees. And, but I think just growing up in a tropical environment, I mean, we're very fortunate here in Florida, whether or not it's in the Panhandle or here. I mean, the tropical plants, the bright colors, all of that is a huge inspiration to my art. I mean, I'm constantly walking around taking photographs of the tropical plants, and even though a lot of my work tends to be maybe a little more abstract or painterly, but those shapes appear in my work. So it's definitely, I mean, growing up on the beach, you can definitely see an influence of the fish and the palm trees and the bright colors and that subject matter.
So, I mean, we can look at some of your pieces that are there, and if you've looked at Victor's website, you see that was the style that you were becoming very well known for.
Right.
And then at the start of the pandemic, you began this new series of palm trees.
Right.
And I see that, and we have 38 in the exhibition here, but you've actually done quite a few more than that. And I see them showing up other places now. So do you want to talk about that a little, and the palm trees and the process of creating these palm trees?
Sure. So the series of palm trees that are featured in the show right now, I started doing that after my father passed away. So my father passed away on March the 10th, 2020. We had his funeral on the 13th, and then on Monday is when the country went on lockdown. So really, it was like all at once. I lost my dad, the country goes on lockdown, like what's going on? I mean, it's just kind of like, it's hard to process anything that's going on. And so for me, I just needed to paint. I mean, when I'm in my studio and I'm painting, that's my happy place. That's where I've always said painting, artists are so lucky. We can go into our studios, paint. That's, for me, it's therapy. It's to get, you know, whatever. I mean, it's just a wonderful, you know, outlet, creative outlet. And I knew that during this time of my father passing and just to spend time with my mother, I actually came back to Orlando, packed up my supplies, my computer, and went back to Pensacola and stayed with her for about 3 or 4 months. I just didn't want her to be alone during this time, and I needed to be with her. I needed that support as well. But the subject matter of the palm trees started, I just needed a simple subject matter to paint. I didn't want to overthink it. I just needed something where I could go into the studio, paint, and do a painting, and just kind of reflect on something that made me happy. And so the palm trees are a subject matter, and because again, it reminds me of the beach. And I started doing these paintings and really not thinking about, oh, these are palm trees, but some of them are very abstract, looking at the different shapes, looking at positive and negative shapes. And what was interesting, after doing several of the pieces or several of the paintings, I realized they were all 24 inches in height by different widths. So some are 18 by 24, 24 by 36. And after about 4 or 5 of these paintings, again, I'm like, okay, here's a great opportunity to do a series, keeping them all the same size. The idea of it being kind of like a billboard panoramic view of the pandemic, our lives just each day kind of morphed one day into the other. And so I just told myself, and this was in the beginning of, I guess, March of 2020, that I'm going to keep painting this series, not knowing where the series would end up or what was going to happen, but hopefully there'll be a vaccine or the pandemic would end. And it just so happened that Randall heard about the series, approached me, and it's an exciting thing to start a project and then to have an end result where it gets to be on display at a museum. And so I'm just thrilled to be able to showcase this body of work. But it started from the passing of my dad passing away, that I needed a subject matter to paint and a journey to take me on.
So speaking of subject matter and your parents, you are of Greek heritage.
Yeah.
And we see that often in your work.
Right.
Do you want to talk about that?
So I am fortunate, I would say I'm very blessed that I'm Greek heritage, because I have so many elements to pull from. I have the statues, vases, columns. I mean, there's so many icons that I can choose and incorporate into my work. I've been fortunate, I've been to Greece 4 times. I'm very proud of my heritage and the culture, and I've traveled with my parents to Greece. And again, it pays respect to my heritage and also to honor my parents as well. And several of the pieces in the show, some of the collages incorporate even letters that my grandfather sent from Greece, and those with the stamps from Greece and the envelopes, and those, again, saved those, so those eventually found, you know, a way to be worked into some of the collages. So, but a lot of my work, I love the statues and the pieces in the first gallery. I really like taking classical Greek forms and putting them into like a pop art vibe, giving them this really contemporary look. You'll see they're covered in tattoos. They all have face coverings in the series here right now to represent the masks that we've been wearing. So some of the statues might have a diving mask on, or one of the sponge helmets, or a snorkeling, or a Viewmaster. And so that's exciting because some of the pieces in the show with the Viewmaster covers the face. Well, the Viewmaster represents memories. So we're going through photos from the past because we're not traveling during the pandemic. And the pieces that are in the exhibit that were featured with a Viewmaster are actually done in 3D. So you'll get a 3D pair of glasses to put on to view the work. So now you have this two-dimensional statue that comes to life in 3D. So,
Great. So you were also served as an art director for SeaWorld for many years and then at Tupperware. And you've brought examples of some of your other graphic design work. Do you want to talk about a little bit about this? And then also the question would be, after your 30 years of doing graphic design, how has that influenced your fine art work?
Sure. And as I mentioned earlier, I've always kind of balanced the two. For me, it was always important to have my career as a graphic designer and then balance that with my fine arts. And they're very, very different. I mean, the graphic design, you have a client, you have a budget, you have meetings, it's just very, very structured. It's not total freedom. I mean, you might be in charge of a project, but you're on a team, there's other people giving advice. Going into my studio, I can do whatever I want to. I can paint the colors I want, the subject matter. No one's directing me saying, Victor, I don't like this. They might critique my work after the fact, but they're not giving me direction at the time. So with that being said, the some of the pieces that I brought, I was very fortunate with my design career. As Randall mentioned, I had 9 years at SeaWorld as an art director, but during those, I also worked doing freelance work for Olive Garden. So Olive Garden is owned by Darden, and they're based here in Orlando. And I knew the art director, and she approached me and asked if I'd be interested in doing their menus for a year. This was back in probably '95, and each year they would change out an illustrator, and they would redo their menus. So they would select an illustrator for 1 year. You would do all their menus, everything from their wine menus to the luncheon menus, dinner menus, and here's another one here. And so if you want to pass that around. So this was kind of fun because I went on Park Avenue, took photographs of Park Avenue, and brought my friends out and photographed them, and then just kind of used them as reference and painted the paintings. But so like I said, that was a wonderful kind of side freelance job that I was doing while I was working at SeaWorld at the time.
And this is one of your most recent works, which was for the Winter Park Art
it is.
Festival.
So
and you actually got to do 2 posters in a row.
I
right?
did. So back in, for 2020, the committee approached me and asked if I would design the poster for the Winter Park Art Festival. And they wanted more of my mixed media collages instead of my traditional paintings. And so I designed the poster for them. And then the week before the art festival, because of the pandemic, it was canceled. They printed the poster, and I apologize, I don't have the 2020 poster, but it's similar. It has more peacocks in it and lots of birds, but it was kind of mixed media again. And so the festival was canceled, and it's unfortunate because I wasn't able to get I shouldn't say that, but a lot of the recognition and publicity that comes with doing the poster for an art show. The t-shirts were not produced, the mugs, all the other merchandise, they just, it's like, well, the show's canceled and we have the poster. I thought it was very generous of them to approach me last year and said, look, you basically got screwed out of last year's poster. We want you to do this year's poster. So I was very grateful that they came back. I mean, they could have easily gone to another artist, but I thought It was really, and I really appreciate that they did come back and said, look, we want you to do another collage. It would be almost like a complementary piece. So the idea was they would group them together and bundle the two posters. And we just wanted something really fun and playful, whimsical. I mean, we just went through the pandemic and we're still going through it, but it was fun to really play off this kind of the Florida flamingos. And this piece here, I mean, this is all done in Photoshop. And so there's probably 30 to 40 images that are Photoshopped together. And it's one of those pieces where, and I do like with my collages, the more you look at it, the more you find you really have to study the work. And it's those little surprises that you might come across. And so the flamingos have been shopping. They picked up this gold leaf ornate frame. There's the Greek column, but there's a peak. I mean, it's so bizarre. It's like you get to create your own environments. And I think that's a great thing about a lot of times in my collage work. I get to create these surreal environments. I mean, it's the peacock lady. She's on a Greek column holding a palette. She's singing. The birds are flying. They're happy. You have the roses down in the corner to represent the rose garden, the orange blossoms, the butterfly. So it was a really fun, playful piece, which I felt we needed something happy and fun to, and they did merchandise it, and it was a very successful poster.
It's fantastic.
Thanks.
All right, well, we're going to head across the street here in just a moment, but before we do, does anyone have a question for Victor before we go see the current exhibition?
Are those 100 little pictures, are they over there?
Say that again?
The 100 little pictures?
No, the 100 paintings, most of those have been sold. And those were large. Those were like the full sheet of watercolor paper. And I still have the drawings. I still have the 365. I'm waiting for a collector to buy all of them, or a museum. I need to put together a book. It's the discipline of scanning. I'm good at disciplining myself to produce work, but when it comes to doing scanning and production like that, I like to put that aside.
But you will be able to see the 60 collages and 38 palm trees and
palm tree
a
and
number of
some of the other pieces.
Another question? John?
Yeah, I'm curious on the piece you did out at the airport,
Uh-huh.
the mosaic and the floor.
Sure.
What was your process and how was it constructed and by whom?
Okay, so
Let's show that.
so this piece.
Great question,
Yeah,
Joe.
thank you. And this is kind of fun to show this, and I was so happy that I found it. So this is the drawing to scale. So this is, it's 88 feet long by 15 feet wide. So it's probably
This represents 15 feet.
So, and 88 feet. So you're talking probably from this wall to the back wall is the length. And so my artwork, so you can see the floor here, and it's in the Southwest Terminal. There's actually 3 mosaic floors. And the airport, so this was back in '98, and the city actually approached about 30 artists, local artists, to put together presentations for the mosaic floor. Myself, Henry Sen, and Grady Kinson were the 3 artists whose works were selected to be turned into the mosaic. And our artwork was actually sent to Italy. So we did not physically do the mosaic. So our paintings were sent to Italy, and they had a team of artisans who actually cut. I mean, the detail is remarkable. I mean, they captured the brush strokes, the different shapes, they matched the color. And it's made up of stone, marble, and glass. So it's a variety of different materials. And after, I don't know how long the process was for them to, I'm sure it was like about a year that they worked on it. Then they came back and installed. And that was kind of neat to be at the airport because we were there. It was like a month process for them installing the floor. And we were able to go and watch them install the floor. And it was shipped in panels. So each, I remember they were like a 2-foot square. But because you have to put it upside down, And then it was grouted, and yeah, I hate that I don't know more of the technical aspect of that, but but it was, like I said, my work. So I didn't physically do the mosaic, but
But you
it's,
did the design.
yeah, I did. It's my painting, my
Color
design.
palettes and everything, probably.
And then the most recent piece, which is in Terminal C, is the Airport Authority wanted a companion piece to the mosaic floor. And as Randall mentioned, this will be where we'll be able to eventually get on the train and go to Miami. And so this piece is, to me, kind of screams. I mean, it's very colorful. It has the bright colors of Miami and the palm trees and the fish. And the challenge here was the architects did not want anything on the walls. They just felt like the building was beautiful and it should just kind of be left alone. And the Airport Authority was, no, we really want something on the walls. The challenge is it's a curved wall. And so you can't just take a two-dimensional piece and hang it on the wall. So that's how, and you can see the actual wall is a grid pattern. So I came up with the idea of having my artwork printed on plexiglass panels. It being plexiglass has the flexibility to curve to the wall, and worked with Triangle Reprographics here in town, which did the reproduction on the plexiglass. And it almost looks like you're maybe at like an aquarium too. I kind of like the high reflection that you get, and because it kind of looks like you're looking through glass and the fish.
So it's actually on the front of the plexiglass.
Right. Well, they print on the back of the plexiglass, and then they put a white adhesive on the back of it, and then it's mounted to the wall. It's like I'd say a 1/4 inch, kind of real modern, kind of silver kind of standoffs, exactly.
Pin mounted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
And that way, if someone touches it, it won't mess up.
right.
Yeah.
And
It'll last a lot longer that way.
And if a piece were to get damaged, if someone were to scrape it or whatever, they could just replace one
Yeah.
grid, take that out and replace it. God forbid that were to happen, but
Theoretically.
yeah.
repair.
So,
Yeah. All right, well, why don't we head across the street and we'll go look at
Yeah.
your current discussion.